Hello, my name is Jeff Brewster. I'm a retired research scientist. I want to talk about two videos that appeared in early November dealing with election fraud in Michigan. The first video was presented by Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, Phil Evans, and Benny Smith. The second by Dr. Ayyadurai and Dr. Applegate. And these four engineers did some mathematical analyses of election results and determined that 138,000 votes were fraudulently transferred from Trump to Biden. Now, this is a pretty extraordinary claim, even for 2020. And I wanted to look into this, see if I could confirm or validate this methodology, because they had only analyzed a pretty small number of data sets. I'm going to present a short executive summary, 3 slides here for those who are in a hurry, and then go into a little more depth reviewing the work that was done by Ayyadurai et al., some of the nomenclature, and then present the work that I did. So my goal was to confirm the claim made in those two videos that extensive fraud occurred in the 2020 Michigan presidential race, and by looking at data that was presumed to be negative, to make sure that these analysis methods found true negatives to be normal, classified as normal and not fraudulent. So that data included Trump in the 2016 election, data for other Republican candidates in the 2020 and 2016 races. I'm not going to go into this other category in this talk. So the 3 green X's represent data that was already analyzed by Ayyadurai et al. I'm going to do it again to just make sure I'm performing these analyses correctly. Now, there is one new test that was done with the Saginaw County data that wasn't done by Ayyadurai et al. So I've got St. Clair and I've got these other races. And I'm expecting all of these and these two to be negative, to be classified as normal, because there's no allegation of fraud or reason to believe there was fraud in those races. However, what I found was that all those new races were classified as fraudulent by at least one of the author's methods, and most of them by both methods. So I can only conclude from that that these methods are not capable of accurately and consistently classifying election results as fraudulent or normal, and the claims of election fraud cannot be accepted. So returning to the review, the authors of the Ayyadurai et al. Presentations developed 2 mathematical methods. They're used to extract information from raw election data, and they involve relationships between the party line and direct votes in each precinct. My terminology for the first method is the Evans method, because my understanding is that Phil Evans came up with it, and the second method is the Applegate method for the same reason. A very important part of this work by Ayyadurai et al., and the reason why it's of interest, is that they describe a detailed fraud mechanism, and it has several important features that help one to confirm or refute their theory, and to do so quantitatively and qualitatively. So the theory says that Trump votes were converted to Biden votes at the scanning and tabulation stage, right, electronically. The paper ballots were not affected. Only direct votes were affected. Party line votes for Trump and other Republican candidates remained unaltered. Direct votes for other Republican candidates were also unaltered. And the extent of this conversion from Trump to Biden was deterministic. It was dependent on this specific algorithm, some constant times the percentage of republicanism in each precinct, which can be evaluated in a number of ways, but that's the basic idea. And since we have a specific algorithm, data from the Evans plot, for example, can be combined with that algorithm to actually calculate the number of votes that were fraudulently transferred or converted. Nothing is terribly complicated about these analyses, but it gets cumbersome and sometimes inaccurate. It's hard to stay accurate and succinct in describing in words what they're doing. So I came up with some simple nomenclature. I'm going to use uppercase letters for candidates, lowercase letters for the type of vote. So P is for a party line vote, D is for a direct vote, where you're voting for individual candidates. T is the total of those two. So P, this expression would just be the number of party votes for Trump, which by definition is the number of party votes for all Republican candidates. This would be the number of direct votes for some Democratic candidate. This ratio is the total number of Trump votes divided by the total number of votes for all candidates. It's just the percentage of total votes for Trump in this particular race. So in this nomenclature, an Evans plot is expressed this way. It's the percentage of direct votes for Trump minus the percentage of party line votes for Trump in a given precinct versus the number of party line votes. And the thought is that this is a good estimator for the number of direct votes. So this ordinarily should be around 0. If there's something going on that's taking away votes, the direct votes, then this sum will be negative. And if that would be an indicator of fraud, particularly if there's some systematic deviation in that sum. The Applegate plot's simply the number of direct votes versus the number of party votes in a precinct. With that, we'll get to an example. And both of these examples appeared in the videos. So this is an example of a normal data set, a normal race. No fraud, Saginaw County 2020. And this data fits a parabola very well. It has a negative slope at high Republicanness, but 0, or it slopes up initially and then comes down. Whereas fraudulent data fits a straight line throughout the domain with a very significant negative slope. An Applegate plot looks like this. We have the Democratic and Republican responses plotted. In this case, the Republican votes lie very close to the straight line, very little dispersion. They have a very small R-squared value. The Democratic votes are scattered all over, no matter what kind of straight line you tried to fit, and this R-squared parameter is high. So when those two behaviors are very different like this, that's an indicator of fraud. So to summarize the results, 5 counties in Michigan were looked at. 3 were found to be fraudulent by the Evans method. 2 were found normal. And this, I think, was a test case in the second video. This Alabama County was normal. These 3 data sets were also analyzed by the Applegate method and classified as fraudulent. The Applegate test was not applied to these data sets. And the quantitative numbers are over here. It's a very substantial effect. So in Kent County, this is more than 10% of the total vote. And remember that the total vote is both party line and direct votes, and these are only direct votes. So this is a very substantial fraction of the direct vote. It's a big effect. So again, I was trying to confirm the reliability of these methods by running them with some negative control data, data that we know did not so again, I'm trying to confirm that these methods work by trying them on negative control data, data that's known to come from non-fraudulent elections. And then I'm going to make sure that that is how they are identified, that the outputs from those two methods are classified as normal, non-fraudulent. This isn't as easy as it might seem because it's hard to come by data with direct and party line vote counts. Most databases tend to collapse those two into a total vote count. Even if you can find that data, it needs to come from a county with enough voters and precincts to give you statistically reliable results. And it also needs to come from a county that has a wide range of Republican Party votes, Republicanness. So we have precincts that are very Democratic, where there's no fraud no transfer occurring according to this algorithm, and precincts that are very Republican, where we're expecting a large transfer of votes under this algorithm in order to get kind of reliable results. So I did find one additional county, St. Clair, that is fairly large, has a good range of values. But we can also use other races within the same data set that was analyzed by Ayyadurai et al. Because, as mentioned, the other races were not subjected to fraud. And they provide very good internal controls. We have the same electorate, the same time, the same place, just a different race compared to the presidential race. One can also get data from 2016 elections in the same county to look at. Although there was not a Senate race in 2016, and again, a lot of the older data no longer splits out party line and direct votes. So I took a total of 9 new data sets that had not been analyzed by Ayyadurai et al. Before, as well as looking at the Kent and Macomb County data and the Saginaw data. And remember, the Saginaw was classified as normal by Evans plot by them, but they didn't do the Applegate analysis. All right, so what I found was inconsistencies in classification. Here's that same Saginaw County data. It's classified as normal under Evans, but if you do the Applegate analysis, you see very different R-squared values. It would be considered fraudulent by that classification scheme. The opposite occurs with the St. Clair County. We have very similar R-squared values in the Applegate plot, so that would be classified as normal. But the Evans plot, the best fit to a parabola is an inverted parabola that's virtually a straight line. And a real straight line fits even better. So this definitely falls into the classification of fraudulent data, fits a straight line with a significant negative slope. And basically all the other data was classified as fraudulent. So we know this is a 2020 presidential race, which Trump lost in Kent County, and that was identified as fraudulent by Ayyadurai et al. But if you look at the 2016 race, we presume was normal, and which Trump won, is very, very similar. Look in Macomb County, 2020 versus 2016 again. Both very, very similar quantitatively and qualitatively. And also different races within the same election cycle. So 2020 Senate and 2020 U.S. House. I have combined the two districts that were in Kent County into a single House number. They look very similar to each other. They look very similar to the presidential data, and they all classify as fraudulent. there's no allegation of fraud. And finally, we get similar results with Applegate plots. Big differences in R-squared in Macomb County versus those 2 years. So these would all be classified as fraudulent races. So to sum up, everything from Kent County and Macomb County classified as fraud by both methods. Saginaw made this inconsistent classification, as well as in St. Clair. So the conclusions are again that this attempt to confirm the methods of Ayyadurai et al. By testing their methods on known normal data failed. Most of that known normal data was classified as fraudulent. I'm not saying that the methods don't extract some kind of useful information. They do seem to do so. We get consistent results from Kent County and Macomb County across different races and across different time periods. So we do seem to be extracting some kind of information about the composition of that electorate. But it doesn't seem to be information about fraud. And that leads me to conclude that the claims of fraud that have been made cannot be supported by the evidence. Here again are some links to those 2 videos and links to the election data that I used. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will try to answer any questions in the comments to the best of my ability.